My name is Ruthann Haffke, and I work at the School of Public Health. I've been on campus for over 22 years, and so I know personally what it's like to lose motivation and have decreased satisfaction here at Berkeley. You know, for me, I do it because I am a first-generation college student, and helping other first-generation college students navigate these difficult waters of UC is really important to me. Sometimes I lose the why, right? We forget about the why. And so over the years, I've had to, pick myself up, brush off my knees, and get back to, oops, I went ahead too quickly, and get back to, why am I doing this work? So hopefully this session, we all have those moments when we need to increase our satisfaction and motivation at work. And hopefully this session will help you with some strategies to be able to do that you can take with you and that you can share with your coworkers or your colleagues as well. All of the PowerPoints are going to be available online later, as well as the handouts. So just be aware. So today I really want to take some time to figure out what's zapping your motivation and satisfaction, and then what can we do to increase your motivation and satisfaction with work. And walk away with some actionable items that you can then take with you to work on. The keynote speaker, I really liked our keynote this morning, and he just hit all these, I'm like, fits right in. One, I love the idea of owning your own career. So I think you also have to own your own motivation and satisfaction. Unfortunately, nobody can do that for you. Although every once in a while, you get that student that is just so thankful, or that staff member or faculty person who comes up and makes your day. But more often than not, you got to be the little voice inside saying, you do good work, this is good. So owning your own career is part of this process of improving your own motivation and satisfaction. But the idea around reflection, and so today in the workshop, we're going to spend a little time reflecting. We're also going to be talking about your mindset and reframing, right? We're going to talk about a little resilience. And then finally, creativity and being resourceful. And so those were the 4 elements of our keynote speaker. So it fits right in line with what we're going to do today. So today's very interactive, because everything you need to know is inside of you. And so really, we're just about trying to bring that out. I'm up here facilitating that process. I am not the expert on you. You are the expert on you. So what I want you to do is find a partner, and you're going to share with a partner what's the worst job you ever had and why. And you get 2 minutes each. So I'm going to give you a 2-minute warning and then 2 minutes. So share. What's the worst job you ever had and why? All right. How was that? People seemed really engaged. I love doing this one, because everyone's got a worst job story. So my worst job was probably when I was in high school. I worked at a shoe store right before Easter. I had to dress nicely. I had to wear heels. I had to wear a skirt or a dress. And then I'd go in the back, and I'd literally have to climb up, scale the shelving to get to the shoes. And people have really smelly feet. It was rough. That was probably the worst. So would anyone be willing to share what was the worst job? Yeah.
I worked at a bank in the marketing department. So first of all, to those of you who haven't worked in finance, don't ever do it.
Don't work in finance.
No, basically it was my first managerial role, but I wasn't actually allowed to manage my people. I was doing design work, but I wasn't actually allowed to do design work without it getting completely dismantled by anybody who cared to dismantle it. And when you're a creative in a financial machine, people think that you're basically a copy maker, like you're a copy machine. And they treat you and pay you and respect you accordingly.
So it was a job, I have to repeat everything for the, so it was a job where you just didn't have, it sounds like you didn't have a lot of autonomy.
No, I wasn't actually allowed to do my job.
Right, and you weren't allowed to do your job. Any other, what are some other bad job, elements of a bad job?
Kind of like a gloomy office culture.
Gloomy office, was that about the coworkers, or was it physically the office was dark and dank? You were in a cave. Both. Co-workers, dank co-workers, and you worked in a cave. Anyone, other elements?
Being a waitress because I was really, really bad at waitressing.
Yeah, do some work that you just can't excel at, and that doesn't call you in some way, or you don't have the abilities to do.
So mine is kind of similar to the bank story, but it was just a very boring job.
A really boring job.
It wasn't really interesting. It was in marketing.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one more from finance. I was just thinking about the gloomy thing. I was working for another big financial monolith. We were working in the basement. We were routinely there till 4 o'clock in the morning, doing work for people who, when you would be there doing their thing till 4 in the morning, you would find an all-night print shop to give them like 4 case-bound gorgeous things by a 9 o'clock meeting. And the only thing they would say to you is, "You misplaced a semicolon from that last round of edits." My hair started falling out.
No one wants a job where you cannot excel at that job. Also, you are physically in the basement, long hours, underappreciated. One more back here.
I had a job I really loved when I came into it. I had a supervisor I just adored, and then she was offered her dream job and took it, and I hired in somebody I couldn't work with, and it became a job I had to leave.
The bad boss. The bad boss. And so these are pretty common themes. The 3 themes that I think I hear the most: bad boss, bad coworkers, some sort of physical component to it, unsafe kind of environment sometimes, and then sort of the lack of autonomy in the work. When I do this workshop, and I do this exercise quite often, because I love that picture, no one ever mentions money. No one mentioned the salary. It's not the money that makes it the worst job. It's I had to put up with all that stuff and I didn't get paid well. Right? So just be thoughtful about that. Like, what's really going to motivate us at work? And what demotivates us at work? So I can't do anything about the money. If I could, I'd give you all raises, because I know you all deserve them, because you work here at Berkeley. So Howard Figler says that values are your emotional paycheck. So if I can't give you a raise, monetary, I can increase your emotional paycheck. And that means that you're paying attention to what your values are and that you're able to execute your values through work. So the first thing you have to do is sort of figure out, like, what's most important to you, right? Around the values. And are those values aligning with your work, and what's missing? So I've got another exercise for you. And this one is, who's your hero? Someone that you admire, and why? And it doesn't need to be someone famous. It could be your neighbor. It could be a family member. So again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes each to talk about your hero with a partner. So again, I'm going to ask some volunteers to share, and I'm going to have to repeat your stories a little bit or summarize. So who's willing to tell me about someone that they admire and why? Thank you.
I can go talk to
about people who are in our immediate spaces who embody qualities that we aspire to hold. People who take their passion and figure out how to turn it into purpose and deliver on what it is that they care most about. So all the people that we recognize are people close to us who share specific qualities that we would like to emulate.
So can you tell me some examples of the qualities?
Sure. So, I mean, they're empathetic, they're good listeners, active listeners, people who listen and who actually care about people. And
So
show
people
up.
that you are close to that show empathy, that are good listeners.
Correct. And who follow their passion and take risks and are vulnerable in their quest for whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
Risk takers and willing to share their vulnerabilities. Excellent. Anyone else willing to share?
I was sharing about my grandmother who was in the Japanese internment camps, and that despite her sharing her story about all the struggles and the horrible things that she went through, she now, when she speaks about it, has this remarkable way of looking at the positive and being uplifting about such a horrible experience. And so my colleague Somali just really kind of blew my mind a little bit to ask her the question, do you think that she was able to find that positive outcome when she was in that space? And it was just like an interesting question to make us realize, and my suspicion is strongly no, the way that she talks about it. So then kind of drew a line even more to say, okay, well then we're in a wallowing space. It's okay to be in a wallowing space because someone like her was able to see the positivity after that.
Right.
So it was kind of like a really uplifting, like, wow moment.
So your grandmother was able to reflect on that experience and learn and grow from that and turn it into a positive versus staying in the negative, right? So all about that improving satisfaction with life through when we have to hit those things we have to overcome, right? Moments. Anyone else willing to share? In the back.
For us, hero wasn't necessarily the right word. It was, both of us sort of came to the conclusion that there were people in our lives who were supportive and trustworthy, who both pushed us and mentored us. You know, that balance of like, go out and fly, I'll help you flap your wings if you need.
Right. So who's the wind beneath your wings? Is that the? So people in our lives that support us, that are mentors. That what other qualities did you mention about?
They were, say.
Yeah. Also being able to trust them.
Yeah.
Trust. That was a big one. Yeah.
To give honest advice and thoughtful advice.
And people that can give you good advice in your lives. Don't we all want that? I'll tell you about mine. Mine is my aunt. She was a flight attendant for Pan Am, for those of you that remember Pan Am. So she traveled the world. And she was somebody, everyone in the family, she's just the one that everybody loved. Right? She exuded love from you just got that. Everyone who met her liked her. So when you're reflecting on these people in your life that are really important to you, those are the folks that are demonstrating the values that are important to you. So my aha moment when I did this exercise was like, okay, 2 things I really value: travel and love, compassion, empathy. So as you thought about those people in your life, what are some of the values that come up for you? And are you living in those values? Are you expressing those values? Is there a value there that, you know, sometimes that's their value and good for them? But is there something there? Maybe there's a kernel of truth for you in those values. All right, we do not have enough handouts. There are way too many people here today. So what I'm going to do, and this is, I know this is not going to be easy. What I want you to do is to come up with a list of 5 values that are important to you. And I have a list. This is why it's not going to work well, because I think it's going to be really hard for you to see the list. But it's what I got for the room. Can you read that at all? Oh, good. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I want you to come up with a list of, let's say, 5 to 10 values that are important to you. And you can use this list. You can come up with your own. All right, how are people feeling?
Totally clear.
Totally clear? Absolute clarity. If only, right? Life is not that easy. What I find in my work with my clients is that people, what I like to say is work is compromise. Otherwise, it'd be called fun, right? And work is a relationship. And what I learned in my counseling degree is that when the relationships gets out of balance and you're having to compromise too much, that's usually when people will leave the relationship. And so similarly with work, when it gets too out of balance, then we know it's time to leave. If you're not able to express your values through your work, or if your values aren't aligning, then that means there's a signal for change. Sometimes we can change within the position that we have, and that's all about reframing, right? So I used to work in an office that was gunshot. So that means you walk through one office to get to the next, to the next. So literally people had to walk through my office to get to the kitchen and the bathrooms. So I got a lot of traffic. It was fine. But what I learned was people are really dirty, have really dirty kitchens. And they're totally okay with that at work. And I can't imagine what it's like at home if they leave work like that. And every day I'd go in and I'd clean it up and I'd ask people, like, can we do something about this? We'd put some signs up, whatever, right? And I would just get so angry and so frustrated. And I was the one closest to the kitchen, so I was the one who was most impacted by it. And finally one day I realized, Ruthann, you need to make the world the way you want it to be. If it's important to me to have a clean kitchen, then that makes me happy. Having a clean kitchen makes me happy. If these other fools want to be in dirtiness, that is their problem. So to this day, in my office, every day I go in, we have a kitchen, I'm right near the kitchen again, and I wipe up the counter, I put out the napkins, I make sure things are where they're supposed to be, and it makes me happy. See, now before, it made me really upset to do all these things. But then I finally remembered, wait, this is about what makes me happy, and it makes me happy to have a clean kitchen in the workplace as well as at home. So sometimes it's the story that we're telling ourselves around our values, around our work, around the things that are happening to us at work. These people don't clean up after themselves, right? So reframing is really important. Sometimes it can get you through the other side. So what I want you to do is think about that reframing piece for a problem, an issue that you're having at work, right? Is there some way that you could be tackling it a little bit differently? What are you stuck on? What's stuck in your craw? And again, with a partner, I want to have you focus on some questions for change. So I have a degree in counseling, and I've been trained in coaching. And so these are some questions for change to help people get unstuck. So again, with a partner, you don't have to get into a lot of detail about what the thing is that you're stuck on, because what happens is then we start telling these same stories, and we start getting into the emotions around the stuckness. All those people who don't like to keep the kitchen clean, doing this to me, right? It's not about the man. I don't want you to get stuck in the old story, because we're trying to pivot towards the new story, the reframe. What do you want to be doing? So with a partner, work through these questions. And when you're the one who's doing the listening, the coaching, and you're in the coaching role, you're not problem solving, you're just asking the questions. You're going to probe to help the person come to an answer that's good for them. Does that make sense? So it's pivoting to the future versus spending a lot of time in that negativity of the past, of whatever the problem is or the issue. Okay, so you get 5 minutes each to do that, because I know this is tougher work. The volume just kept getting louder and louder. How was that for people? Good? Can you tell me more than good? Why was it good? Any actionable?
So we were talking about a problem that I'm encountering where I feel like there aren't a lot of resources for support and to solve. And my colleague really pointed out there are some resources, and these are ways to leverage them. And it was just sort of taking my blinders off and seeing from a broader perspective. Yeah. So sometimes having that outside perspective versus, and I also find that sometimes when we have these tapes in our head these stories we keep telling, those darn people that keep leaving their messes in the kitchen, right? These stories and these tapes that have this emotional component to it. And so when we can think about the story from a different perspective, somebody asks the right question, somebody points you to another way to think about it, can open up possibilities and sometimes disengage that emotional piece to it. And it's, to me, the emotional piece where we get stuck, right? Because not only is it a problem, it's a problem with, like, teeth. Anything else? Any other insights? So I just want to reiterate that I think that using some of these coaching techniques with your coworkers and with yourself, the reframing, the trying to see about how you can improve your emotional paycheck at work, right? I'm a big fan of mantras, so I try and set up different mantras for myself. And when I was going through some of my deepest, darkest times here at Berkeley, every day I reminded myself, focus on the fun. Focus on the fun. I'm here because I actually love my job. I love my job. It's all that stuff up above that's happening to me and out there, right? So I reminded myself to focus on the fun, focus on the work that I love to do that filled me with joy, that aligned with my values, and let the rest of it work itself out. Like those crazy people up on the 5th floor, they can just deal with it, right? So I would encourage you to do some reframing, find what mantras work for you, focus on the future. So I'm supposed to say thank you and use the QR code if you want to give some feedback. And we're going to get a little out early so you guys can get the snacks and get all that stuff, right? So thanks for coming. Thank you.